The truth is this: survival was never the assignment. You were not designed merely to endure the days, to repeat routines, to wait for permission, or to shrink your dreams until they fit the fears of others. Survival is what the world teaches the weak-minded. Conquest is what life demands from those who awaken. Every great soul in history reached this moment, the instant they stopped asking how to get by and started asking how far they could go. Edison failed thousands of times because his mind was fixed on conquest, not comfort. Lincoln stood alone against ridicule and defeat because his spirit answered to destiny, not circumstance. They were not special by birth. They were decisive by choice, and now the same choice stands before you. To conquer does not mean to dominate others. It means to master yourself. It means ruling your thoughts when doubt screams, commanding your habits when comfort whispers, and standing unshaken when the world tests your resolve. The battlefield is internal long before it becomes external. When you conquer fear, action becomes natural. When you conquer indecision, clarity sharpens like steel. When you conquer procrastination, momentum begins to obey you. This is the moment where excuses lose their power. This is where the past releases its grip. This is where you decide, once and for all, that your life will not be an accident, a reaction, or a compromise. You were born to build, to rise, to leave evidence of courage where fear once lived. Stand taller in this truth. Move forward with intention. Think boldly. Act decisively. And remember this always: the world bends, eventually and inevitably, to the mind that refuses to kneel. You were not born to survive. You were born to conquer. You were born with a fire inside you that no winter of circumstance can extinguish. Long before the world placed limits on your thinking, before fear learned your name, before doubt whispered itself into your habits, there was a raw, untamed force within you. That force was not designed to merely endure days and count years. It was designed to shape destiny, to carve meaning out of chaos, to rise again and again, no matter how many times life attempted to press you into the ground. Survival is instinct. Conquest is intention. Animals survive. The conscious human being was created to decide, to direct, to dominate the inner world first and, through that mastery, influence the outer one. Every great figure history understood this truth. Edison was not smarter than his peers. He was more relentless in belief. Lincoln was not spared hardship. He refused to surrender to it. Carnegie did not inherit fortune. He inherited definiteness of purpose. They did not ask life for permission. They commanded themselves. The moment you stop negotiating with your potential, something profound happens. Energy that was once scattered becomes focused. Thoughts that once contradicted each other fall into alignment. You stop asking, "Can I?" and begin declaring, "I will." That declaration is not noise, it is law. The mind accepts it. The body obeys it. Circumstances rearrange themselves around it. This is the quiet power most never access, not because it is hidden, but because it demands responsibility. To conquer means there is no one left to blame, no excuse to lean on, no comfort in victimhood, only choice, only action, only growth. And when you embrace that truth fully, when you decide that your life will be directed by vision instead of reaction, by purpose instead of fear, you step into what you were always meant to be, not a survivor of days, but creator of outcomes. The world never needed another survivor. It needed builders. It needed visionaries who could look at chaos and see order, who could stare at uncertainty and feel opportunity breathing beneath it. From the beginning of time, progress has never been carried forward by those who waited to be saved. It has always been moved by those who decided, quietly, firmly, without applause, that they would take command of their inner world first. Because the moment you master your thoughts, the outer world begins to rearrange itself in your favor. Every great conqueror understood this truth before they ever touched the battlefield. Napoleon Hill wrote that definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement, and history confirms it. Edison did not conquer darkness with luck. He conquered it with relentless belief. Ford did not reshape industry by accident. He held a vision so steady that reality eventually bent to match it. They were not immune to fear. They simply refused to negotiate with it. They chose command over comfort, discipline over delay, faith over familiarity. And this choice is available to you now, not someday, not when conditions improve, but in this breath, in this moment. To conquer does not mean to dominate others. It means to rule yourself, to rise each day with intention, to think on purpose instead of by default, to act with courage even when the outcome is uncertain. When you do this consistently, life stops happening to you and starts responding to you. So stand upright in your own mind. Let doubt know it has no authority here. Let fear understand it may speak, but it will not decide. You were not designed to drift, to endure, to merely make it through. You were designed to build, to create, to expand, and to leave evidence of your will behind you. The moment you accept this truth fully, something irreversible happens. You stop surviving, and you begin to conquer. You were not shaped by accident, not carved by chance, not thrown into this world merely to endure the days and disappear quietly into the night. Every struggle you faced, every setback that tested your spirit, every moment when the weight felt unbearable was forging something within you. Survival is what happens when you drift. Conquest is what happens when you decide. And the moment you stop confusing endurance with destiny, something ancient awakens inside you. Look back through history, and you'll see it clearly. Edison failed not because he lacked intelligence, but because he refused to surrender his vision. Lincoln was defeated again and again, not because he was weak, but because he understood that defeat was tuition for leadership. Carnegie arrived with nothing but a belief so fierce it bent circumstance to his will. They were not born extraordinary. They became unstoppable when they chose command over comfort. The mind is the battlefield where this choice is made. Every day, quietly, without applause, you either reinforce the identity of the conqueror or the identity of the victim. One thought at a time, one decision at a time. When you tolerate excuses, you train weakness. When you delay action, you negotiate with fear. But when you commit fully, without retreat, you align with a force that has moved civilizations. This is the moment most people miss. They wait for confidence, but confidence is the echo of action, not its cause. They wait for certainty, but certainty is built by movement, not contemplation. The conqueror acts while the voice of doubt is still whispering. And in doing so, that voice grows quiet. Inside you is the same raw power that has always separated builders from bystanders. It does not ask for permission. It responds only to command. The truth is this: survival is what happens when the mind shrinks its vision to the size of fear. Conquest begins the moment the mind expands beyond circumstance. Every era that ever advanced did so because someone refused to merely endure it. Edison did not survive failure. He conquered darkness with persistence. Lincoln did not survive division. He conquered despair with vision. Carnegie did not survive poverty. He conquered limitation with organized thought. These were not men with fewer doubts than you. They were men who refused to bow to doubt once their decision was made. Inside you is the same commanding force. It waits for a clear order. It waits for definiteness. It waits for the moment you stop asking life for permission and start issuing instructions to your own mind. The world responds to those who move with certainty, not to those who hesitate and hope. Faith, when fused with action, bends reality. Desire, when disciplined, becomes destiny. Thought, when sustained, becomes power. You were born to build, to rise, to leave an imprint that cannot be erased by time. You were born to think beyond today, beyond comfort, beyond the limits placed on you by voices that never dared to test their own potential. Every challenge you face is not proof of weakness, but evidence that you are standing at the edge of growth. The resistance is real because the transformation is real. So decide now. Decide with finality. Decide that your mind will no longer negotiate with fear, delay, or doubt. Decide that your vision is worth the discipline it demands. When you command your inner world, the outer world has no choice but to follow. This is not motivation. This is truth. You were not born to survive. You were born to conquer. You were not shaped by chance. You were not assembled by accident and dropped into this world merely to endure its weight. Survival is what animals do. Conquest is what conscious men and women choose. Somewhere along the way, society lowered the bar and told you that making it through the day was enough, that paying the bills was success, that silence was safety. But deep inside you, there has always been a quiet rebellion, a knowing that you were built for more than repetition and restraint. Every great conqueror in history first conquered an invisible enemy. Before Lincoln faced a divided nation, he faced doubt and despair. Before Edison lit the world, he battled ridicule and thousands of failed attempts. Before Carnegie mastered industry, he mastered his own self-image. The outer victories were simply the echo of an inner decision. They refused to negotiate with fear. They refused to shrink their vision to fit the comfort of others. The world does not respond to wishes. It responds to definiteness. When you decide with clarity, when your purpose becomes non-negotiable, life rearranges itself around your resolve. Obstacles stop being stop signs and become instructions. Failure stops being a verdict and becomes feedback. You begin to move differently, speak differently, think differently, because your mind has accepted a higher command. This is where discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like self-respect. You wake up earlier not because you have to, but because your future is calling. You say no to distractions not out of deprivation, but out of devotion. Every focused action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming, and slowly, unmistakably, the world starts to mirror your inner authority. Opportunities appear. Confidence compounds. Momentum builds. Not because luck found you, but because you finally chose to conquer what was always yours to command. The moment you understand this truth, something ancient wakes up inside you. Not the hunger to merely exist, but the fire to expand, to rise, to leave a mark that time itself cannot erase. Survival is instinct. Conquest is intention. Survival asks, how do I get through this? Conquest asks, how do I shape this world with my will? And every great name etched into history chose the second question again and again, often in silence, often in fear, but always with resolve. Look at the men and women who changed the course of humanity. Edison did not survive failure. He conquered it through obsession. Lincoln did not survive ridicule. He conquered division with vision anchored in moral certainty. Carnegie did not survive poverty. He conquered limitation by mastering the laws of thought and organized effort. They were not spared doubt. They were not immune to exhaustion, but they refused to negotiate with their destiny. They decided, and then they aligned every thought, habit, and action with that decision. This is the inner war few are willing to fight, the battle against excuses that sound reasonable, the battle against fear that wears the mask of logic, the battle against comfort that whispers, tomorrow is safer. Conquerors silence those voices not with emotion, but with definiteness. They know exactly what they stand for. They know what they will not tolerate. And once that line is drawn, life begins to reorganize around them. Now understand this clearly. The world does not reward potential. It responds to commitment. It bends to clarity. It opens doors for those who move with purpose instead of hesitation. The moment you stop asking for permission from circumstances, from people, from your past, something shifts. You are no longer reacting to life. You are directing it. You were not born to merely endure days and count years. You were born to command your mind, discipline your actions, and shape your future with conscious intent. Decide who you are. Decide what you will build. Decide what you will no longer accept. And once that decision is made, stand by it with such conviction that even doubt learns to step aside. This is not motivation. This is remembrance of who you were before the world told you to play small, of what becomes possible when thought, belief, and action move as one. You were not born to survive. You were born to conquer, starting within and then without. The world has trained you to accept crumbs and call them enough. It has taught you to lower your voice, soften your hunger, and apologize for wanting more. But listen closely. History was never written by those who survived quietly. It was carved by those who refused to bow to circumstance. Every great conqueror first conquered the invisible battlefield within their own mind. Before empires rose, a decision was made in silence. Before fortunes appeared, belief was planted in darkness. You were not designed to live on the edge of your potential, constantly negotiating with fear, doubt, and delay. The mind you carry is not a shelter, it is a weapon. When disciplined, it becomes unstoppable. Napoleon Hill taught that definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement, and that truth has never aged. The moment you decide, truly decide, something shifts. Energy aligns. Confusion dissolves. The scattered mind becomes a focused force. Look at Edison, failing thousands of times, not because he was stubborn, but because he was decided. Look at Lincoln, carrying defeat after defeat, not as scars, but as proof of endurance. Look at Ford, laughed at by experts, yet driven by a vision they could not see. These were not superhuman men. They were men who refused to retreat inward when the outer world resisted. And here is the truth most never face. The greatest enemy is not poverty, competition, or circumstance. It is hesitation. The habit of waiting. The quiet addiction to someday. Once you end the inner debate, life responds differently. Doors open not because the world changed, but because you did. Stand now in that decision. Let this be the moment you stop surviving. Let this be the hour you claim dominion over your thoughts, your actions, your future. You were not born to endure the days. You were born to command them. And now it ends where it always should inside you. Not with noise, not with applause, but with a decision so quiet and so final that the world will feel it later. You were not born to survive scraps of life, to negotiate with fear, to shrink your dreams so they fit inside someone else's comfort. You were born with a mind that can imagine, a will that can endure, and a spirit that refuses to stay small once it remembers who it is. History was never moved by those who waited for permission. It was shaped by those who decided and then aligned every thought, every habit, every action with that decision. From this moment forward, you no longer ask if you are capable. You act as someone who already knows. You no longer wait for the right conditions. You become the condition. Discipline becomes your devotion. Faith becomes your fuel. Persistence becomes your identity. And when doubt whispers, you answer it with motion. Let the world see the results later. For now, win the inner war. Master the unseen hours. Build the mind that commands circumstances instead of obeying them. Because once you conquer yourself, nothing outside you can hold you back. This is not motivation. This is remembrance. You were never meant to merely exist. You were born to conquer.